like that into the proposal. Do you want to?
I don't understand what you're asking me.
We're saying we'd like a certain amount of money for the property taxes on this bond, but we can leverage it with potential donors or grants, and then if we could explain that, right, in the county council proposal. How much can we add that in?
It's all hypothetical at this point, right?
Yeah, I mean, except for what we've been working on, which,
Right.
you know, at this point, it's not going to be discussed until everybody's ready to come forward, right? So, I mean, all I'm saying is don't expect it with this presentation.
No, I'm just saying.
But there has been, yeah, I mean, there's definitely.
Is it possible to say something like, our committee, you, is working with potential donors in the amounts of anything they're comfortable? Can't say that yet.
I think we say we're working.
But we can talk about grant money that we think we can go out for.
Maybe that's something we need to pursue, so we can say, here's the grant applications, here's their deadlines. Once the bond passes, we'll meet these deadlines, right, for these groups. We should have that outlined, right?
We should be able to say what other, what other counties or entities have been able to do in similar circumstances. What kind of matching should you anticipate? That statistic has to be out there somewhere, where you can say, in the last 5 years, according to this and this entity, who put this study out, there's at least 50% matching for every public dollar that's put out there. Something like that. There are probably some statistics out there that we can float.
Well, how about you work on that?
I'll do some research. Yeah, no problem doing that.
And then Tracy, or does anybody want to take that assignment to start looking at the funding for grants or deadlines, or
I think
what
grants.
groups we will apply to?
I can take that, because I'll reach out to Wendy Fisher. And then I've already talked with Scott Erickson. He's the Deputy Commissioner of the Department of Ag for the state. And he said they've done other things in Cache County where the state has actually stepped in and helped preserve ag lands. So
I'm not so sure we shouldn't team up Ryan with Cortland 22 too.
that's a good idea.
Because his background is probably, his wealth of knowledge of different places that he could get these sources of funding from.
Who's the guy, the Department of Ag guy?
Scott Erickson.
Yeah,
Okay.
they know him, they like him,
I think that was Spencer's polite way of saying Ryan would be okay, but
No, I think Ryan's a stud, but Ryan,
Iron Man.
he's thinking Iron Man. I think.
yeah.
Just
So
tease it.
Portland and I will take that assignment.
Yeah, but you know what I
Team
mean.
up,
Right, I
research
think that-
grant opportunities.
Cortland knows federal areas that we maybe could apply to. He knows the keyhole, or the tricks to get this kind of funding.
See, I think that'll make our presentation really strong. That it's not just this amount, but that, here are real sources with real deadlines, and we can meet.
Or priming the pump.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
Priming the pump,
and
we're not
that's the
supplying all the
goal.
water.
Right, that's the goal, to leverage this money, double, triple, maybe more if we can, and then we will. See, then I think we need to talk about a simple process that we'll go through to approach property owners. Just a very simple process. I mean, there's standards here on what I sent you in the email. But just that, this is our goal, right? We're going to have this process to do outreach to property owners. Our goal is to get 3 to 5 property owners in 2019, once the bond passes and we make these grant
We talked about
applications.
this at the last meeting though, and I'm just saying if we get a couple successes under our belt, they'll be contacting us.
There you go. So we
So,
this.
So that's what we've been working on for years, and
Do you want to take that part then?
well, I'm just
Talking
saying,
about it?
what I'm trying to say is that you can approach landowners, but what really you're offering is for them to be, they want to be communicated with one-on-one. They don't want to be in a big room full of people hearing about conservation easements. It's a very private thing. And so it's not like you can go hit up landowners. It's a little bit more You know what I mean? It's
our
like,
process.
yeah, so there's really no concrete way to go find them. But if we have a couple projects that we come out of the gate with that are, then word gets around pretty quickly. And I think we might be hearing from some people from all over the place of going, what about me, what about me? And that's what somebody would need to do, is sit with these people privately and talk about their situation, their personal situation and the tax benefits of it and all that kind of stuff. So that's a lot of information that none of us have.
I mean, just
Of
said a minute
the-
ago about tax.
Right.
Yeah.
That was one of the
Yeah,
things
I
I mentioned
I'm
here.
familiar with this stuff. So, I mean, I get brought in all the time to work on this on the other end. So I think there are
Good.
some high-profile targets that we could go after. Actually, I agree with you that if we land a couple big accounts, if you will, if we do this a few times, word will spread. But like, for example, I got brought in by a property owner a couple years ago in Wolf Creek Ranches. So I don't know if you guys go up there much, but I go through and ride my way
Yep.
to the top. It's beautiful. And I don't know if they ever followed through, but at one point they were looking at putting a conservation easement over the entire property.
Oh, it is.
All of Wolf
It's
Creek
there.
Ranches. I think it's in place.
It is in place.
So I did due diligence on it like 2.5 years ago, right? And that's a huge land, right? I mean, to
Yeah.
lock up, what is that, like 16,000 acres in
The whole
a
thing?
conservation easement, the whole thing was locked
Oh,
up.
yeah.
Not just individual.
Not just
160.
individuals,
No.
all the individuals had to sign off.
On
They did it.
160 acres, you can only build on 10 acres of that lot.
Mhm.
Of
And
each
the
of those
rest,
lots.
and the
And that-
rest is in a conservation.
That was the case even before the conservation easement, because they just used the existing building envelopes.
Right.
Doesn't matter, right? But the reason all these individual landowners were willing to jump on board, like my client that retained me in that situation, was the tax benefits, right? These are second and third and fourth and fifth and sixth homeowners, who have a cabin up in Wolf Creek Ranches that's $20 million and come out a couple times a year, but, they want to reduce their tax burden. And so it's like, well, sure, if you want to run sheep on it once a year and lock it up in a conservation easement, we're in. So Utah Open Lands actually negotiated that one, but I think it took somebody proactively saying, like, I'm going after this HOA. So I do think there are, in our county, a couple of places like that where we could approach and kind of land a well, and I don't think they didn't take any money, it wasn't like they wanted a financial benefit for locking up their
Do you
16,000
think there's
acres.
still areas like that around them?
Sure, I mean, I think there has to be. Timber Lakes, for example, right? I don't think there's a conservation easement on all of the open space within Timber
They didn't
Lakes.
have any, but they do have their common areas.
Yeah, they're common areas. Go lock a conservation easement on it, and you just locked up all those wildlife corridors. And I bet you could do it for very little money. I mean, I know one of the large landowners up there. I represent him. I could approach him, But so I think there is room for a targeted approach that would actually not be using very much of the money. That would be more about the resources. Having somebody like me and maybe somebody else come in and say, hey, look,
There you go.
this isn't going to cost you any money. You're not going to have to pay an attorney $80,000 to try and get this in place. And look at all these benefits you're going to get. You're going to lock in. We're going to strip the development off of this so that you're not paying any taxes. You don't have to worry about this. Most of the people that have those kind of properties, they're not. Nobody bought 160 acres in Wolf Creek Ranches because they thought somewhere down the road they're going to develop it out. They bought it so they could put a secluded cabin there. And so if that's what they're after, that's the kind of property it is. I mean, I think that's a really easy, low money sell. The harder sells are going to be the 40 acres at the corner of the 40 and River Road, right, where it's high profile.
They
you're
should be
looking-
compensated, obviously.
Yeah, but I mean, you're tackling a dragon right out the gate, in my view, right? You've got somebody who put a lot of effort and a lot of time, to try to make money off of a small piece of property. And so you're going to have to convince them that they should make a lot less money than what they've invested into it. I think
It's
it's
sold about 10 times and inflated every time.
every time. I agree that it's probably worth chasing, but I mean, I feel like I got to put on my shield and my helmet and my arms because I'm killing a dragon. Whereas going up to Wolf Creek Ranches, I mean, I feel like that is a very, very easy sell. But I think it would be important to line those up in a presentation and show that with a little bit of money, just by forming the committee, I think they're taking a step because frankly, you're pooling resources like all of ours. My time is $300 an hour. I'll do it for free just because I want to see more open spaces. All of you are in the same boat, right? So we're pooling a talent pool. We're pooling talent. That's a value in and of itself that I think should come across in the presentation. but the little bit of the money is the grease still, you know, to make these more difficult transactions come together, I think, and
Well, in a lot of these grants, you have to have seed money. You have to, you know, they got to see the counties in the game on this too, because they're not just going to give us money. We said that last meeting, is just, nobody just hands over grant money. You've got to say, okay, we've got pledges for this, or we did a bond election, now we've got this money to set aside. That matters to the grants, so.
So what I think would be really productive, based on what I've heard, and I'm probably the least informed in the room, but is if what we're shooting for is a March 14th date of our working session, right, with the city council, and then a public session, it sounds like on the 28th, with the city council.
County
Council,
so
I'm
you know.
sorry,
Yep,
county
no,
council. It's late, I was in a depot all day.
No,
too.
I'm just
But,
saying, just so,
thank you,
yeah,
county
so that we're
council.
clear.
If that's what we're working towards, I think what would be really helpful right now is to break up our presentation. Let's create an outline, right? When I sit
Just
down
do
to
it.
write something persuasive,
Here we go.
yep,
Just do
I
it
start
right
with
now.
my outline, and usually I'll brainstorm topics first. So I like. Do you guys mind if I just step up to the whiteboard?
No,
I
go
just
for it.
Yeah, I
start?
was gonna
I
say.
have
yeah,
terrible
let's-
handwriting, but
Let's do it. I was thinking we could start with the needs, and we could start with the Heber City survey and the Midway wanting to put on their own open space bond. And we can show right here in the survey, you know, that people want open space. We can talk about the referendum from before that stopped the North Fields from, you know, being upzoned. You know, we can talk about all these things in the valley that show that people want this. So the needs, why do people want this?
so point one. Needs.
And so we have the Heber City survey, we have Midway trying to get their own open space bond, we have a referendum on. Sorry.
Yeah, you're kind of in the head.
The survey, the Midway open space push.
Yep, and we have the
What was that third one?
referendum on the North Fields before.
Referendum.
And I think there's going to be another referendum. A referendum. Hey, Tracy, when's the last day on that? Next
First week in March.
So, yeah, that referendum will be hopefully finished by then, so the current referendum,
What's
Okay.
that? On North
let's-
Fields as well, or what is that one?
it's on the South Fields.
Southfields. Okay.
South Field zoning.
Well, let's be clear, the referendum's on the central zone of the general plan, is really what it is.
Central
Let's get
zone.
rid of saying Southfields, because it's not Southfields.
What's it? Central.
Central zone
Central zone.
in the general plan.
Do we need to think of, is there anything else that could show how this valley wants open space?
Yeah, I mean, we have that visitor survey from 2010 that shows that the number one reason people come here is for the open space and quality of life.
Excellent.
It's just another data point.
You know, I really think I think we scratched what we talked about breaking up earlier. I think we should get this done, and then we should talk about where our strengths play into what portion of this presentation. Already, I'm thinking needs is going to be all Ryan as Ironman. I mean, if you're the guy, right, that knows why people come to Wasatch County. To me, I mean, this part of the presentation, we're going to hit all those, but I want to see a lot of pictures, you know, photographs of, you know, this is what's important here. Even if you get some historical showing what used to be amazing drainages or, you know, waterways or something that have been developed in ways that we don't like, you know, that could have been stopped. Anyway, I like
We
that
need it to be-
visitor survey.
Yeah, visitor survey.
We need it to be a condensed presentation, though.
How
Our
long?
presentation,
How long?
well, I mean, you could present this for an hour, but
Right.
after 10, 15 minutes,
People start snoozing.
you start to,
Oh,
well,
we can't do it in-
you always remember the first and the last of every presentation you ever been presented, and
Yeah.
that's not a study
So
point.
you're saying the
You
county counts
gotta,
as a
you
short
gotta
attention
have that in
span?
mind. while
Well,
you're
we
doing
just-
the
You should probably have a YouTube video or two in the middle.
Well,
It's always
okay.
fine that Simpsons
Well,
go over well.
Yeah.
Okay, so that means,
Just bring down.
so
You
that
know,
means,
well,
all of that needs to be on 2 slides.
You're only gonna
right?
remember 10 minutes of it when, if rather you
So you
present.
may need to cut some of this out. You could group.
Heidi hears a lot of stuff, and
No,
and you hear,
I'm just
you
used to
remember
doing
X amount.
3-hour sessions, okay? I'm
Surveys.
just used to it, so I'm used to
Okay, let's
this.
get back to
Anyway,
this.
Okay.
So that should be like 2 slides, right? Just boom, boom, boom.
Mhm.
And then we go into our proposal. Based on this, our board.
Oh, let's bring up, could you put on there Bonanza Flat?
Oh, right.
Because that's kind of what started this whole thing, was because there were a bunch of people in our community that were asking, why aren't we donating to Bonanza Flat? Why aren't we stepping up? So there's a lot of new residents in this
Park City's
community.
got plenty of money.
Yeah, it was cheaper for them to buy Bonanza Flats than to provide the sewer and water that they'd already promised.
You're familiar with Brighton Estates?
Yeah, don't say that out loud, but that was the reason they bought it.
So anyway, so that's good on the needs. What else do we
So
need?
we didn't need to give the money, because they'd already,
So you didn't.
Okay, so no, I'm gonna throw
Yeah,
one more need
25
on
grand.
like a little 25
Right.
grand.
Justin,
25
I think-
grand.
Yeah.
I think the
But
additional
That's
need
a
we
good
need to
deal,
put
Park
is
Okay.
City County then.
Council
Planning
in the
for future
early
growth.
2000s had
I like
promised
that.
to provide sewer and water to that area. That's
What's
why
that?
it got the
I'm
entire.
Planning
sorry,
for
I'm
future-
trying to listen to you too, so what?
planning for future growth is
So
a
it was
need.
cheaper for
Because if we don't preserve it now, then it's gonna be
Buy it
eaten
now,
up within the
buy it
next 20 years.
Well, and also the
Okay.
cost of residential growth. We lose money on residential growth. I've got a survey on our website that talks about, residential brings in $1 and costs any community at least
Oh, yeah.
$1.30 to $1.60. So we're
environmental
losing
quality.
money by expanding residential growth. So this is actually a good taxpayer benefit. It'll be cheaper for them to pay for a $10 million open space bond than it will be for them to pay for more schools, more services, more roads.
Infrastructure.
Could
all
go back
that.
to why Park City bought Bonanza Flats.
Right.
So it was cheaper for them to buy it.
Because what you're
Right.
saying is
Do we use that
fewer
example?
people.
No, they don't want to say that's
I
what they
agree
do.
with you.
Okay.
But
Sort of
it's,
saying, let's
very
restrict housing,
practical.
which then you run into Park City's problem, right? They become such an active player in buying up all the developable land.
we're not
Affordable housing.
doing that though. That's where we gotta get out of that idea that we're buying up land like Park City, because Park City now is gonna be so over in debt between Treasure Hill and Bonanza Flat that we're not doing that. I mean, that's what we're not
There
doing.
are 2 other purchases.
Well, I know. So it's crazy what they're,
Someone
But-
told me recently, and I forget the exact stat, but that Park City and Summit County was among the highest per capita taxed city and county in the United States.
And they raise taxes every year.
and they're not even, they haven't even put Treasure Hill on their list. So,
And they have a bigger problem with affordable housing. You mentioned affordable housing just a second ago. I don't, we can't buy the land or totally stop development because they have an affordable housing issue that we're supplying right now, and it's going to
Right.
get worse for us.
right.
So maybe to Tracy's point, kind of our key message is land preservation.
Yes.
Open space preservation. rather than
Yes.
I like open space preservation.
Yeah,
And
rather
we-
than acquisition.
We really need to correct people when they start talking about, well, we're gonna buy up land. We're not buying up land. That is not our priority.
We're incentivizing landowners to not develop. I mean, that's how we're.
We are assisting landowners in their financial planning and their estate planning for their families.
Right.
I mean,
We're
we're
making it
not
affordable
just
for
saying
farmers
we're
to keep farming.
stopping
You know, that's part of
growth.
it.
We're actually helping ourselves as we help them keep their property. So we are actually helping these farmers keep their land instead of selling it off.
And the
I
reality
think
is, like you
that's a-
said, that increases the property values for everybody else, because if you preserve the nature of Wasatch, Wasatch County, the open field, that's what people love about it, right? That's why land values continue to
Quality of
increase.
life.
I was the other night, I was at a reggae concert actually, but I was chatting with a couple.
A what concert?
A reggae concert,
Oh, reggae.
Park City Live. But I was chatting with a young couple, really cool, he was an investment banker out of Chicago, and they live in the Colony. And, the Colony is about as high-end as it gets in Park City. And we're chatting, and they asked where I live. I said Wasatch County, and, why Wasatch County? I have horses, I like the open space. And they said, actually, now that we've lived here a few years, the most beautiful views are in Wasatch County. It's so open, We love how, just that feel, and these are people, that are spending a ton of money.
That could live anywhere.
That could live anywhere, and it's like, yeah, now that we're here, we actually like where you live more. Well, why? Because it's because of TANF, it's because of those views. So it is worth, it increases our property values for sure. Okay, so those are the needs.
Put in the land acquisition. I really think that's a practical way, what Tracy is just saying.
Land acquisition.
That's not
Don't say
underneath,
that.
I'm sorry,
though.
Open space preservation, I think, is a better way of saying
You
it.
said though, it's land planning for.
Estate planning for landowners.
Right.
But that's not under needs, that should be under,
That's a tool, right? I mean, that's what we're doing.
right. But I
It's
mean,
an existing need.
we're talking about why we need to do this.
Well,
And I think
that
it
the
would be
North-
more of.
So we change it to why? Needs or
Yeah.
why? Why do it?
Because I kind of feel like
Right.
we're combining two categories.
Yeah,
Needs
I really
and
do.
benefits. So maybe why?
Yeah, benefits, there you go. That should be under benefits.
Don't we have a large proportion of the Northfields landowners that are older, looking to retire, and they can't pass it on to their family? I think that's a why or a need, just for the Northfields.
Well, if we turn this into a SWAT, that could be an opportunity. But one thing I wanted to mention that's kind of related to this is a few years ago, we started this committee in a different form, and it kind of fizzled. But in that process, we were able to get a map of the Northfields with targeted, 13 acres here, 27 acres there, 50 acres there, and the landowners' names. So I think that would be a useful tool for this group to have as well.
You can pull it up on the county website, though, each one of them.
Yeah, but that simplifies it. I'm trying to make this sound like it's really impressive. So you're supposed to say, really? Can you really provide that?
Well, and as you identify properties, it's not just picking up a 13-acre piece, because it's like, there's going to be lands in the Northfields that are too wet to build on anyway. So we don't need to buy or have conservation easements on it when they can't develop it anyway. So you take out all the overly wet parcels right off the bat, because that's not going to be
Yeah, and we'll just need to confirm that they're overly wet.
right. Well, there's wetland studies, there's soil studies, there's all this kind of studies that have
There are,
already
but
been
even
done.
that commercial piece, I remember the 40-acre one that I was talking about.
Mhm.
The county council's response to the developer was, you can't build there's wetland issues. We said, I have the Army Corps of Engineers letter right here saying I can build. They've studied it, it's good enough. And
They get a
so,
wetland delineation,
what's that?
they get a wetland delineation that shows that it's not, and
Yeah,
if
so
the Army
let's,
Corps approves it, it's buildable. And properties change, as we quit irrigating with, certain ways, it might change. So I'm not so sure.
Right.
Maybe we pay less for it, but I'm still not sure, it's still not a,
Mhm.
yeah, let's just trust but verify that it's really,
Right, but, there's different, to identify what is a identified piece that has a priority to us. There's criteria to figure out what is that priority. I
Yeah,
mean,
well, that's in here.
there you go, so needs and,
I think it's more like existing public interest, right? That's what these surveys, that's what the bond, that's what the referendum show and the visitor survey. That shows an existing public interest, right? If I'm an elected official, fortunately I'm still elected, right? But if I'm an elected official, what I care about is, does my constituency really care about this, right? Or am I just off spending money that they don't care about, right? When I look at my tax bill when I get it each year and I open it up and I'm like, what the fuck, another $50 for Parks and Rec? We're spending more money on that, and then I think, okay, yeah, my kids do play soccer, so I'll go with that. More money to the school, you gotta be able to justify it, right? I think it's important to have a slide that says, this is justified, right? It's not just a very vocal minority that's saying, this is important. All the surveys, the referendums, what all of this shows is that your constituents think this is important. Now, that's an easy sell, because I think the county council already believes that to be true. That's why they appointed the committee, and that's why they're going forward, right? But I think we need to hammer that home if we're speaking.
and it helps us as a public official that
If it's in the
we
record.
get to put it in the constituents' hands.
Exactly.
They get to vote for it.
Exactly. Yeah, it'll go back there.
Whether or not it gets advertised well, and they do,
That's another
we'll be
question.
down to it, yeah.
They've shot down bonds here before, so
Yeah.
I think I remember a swimming pool bond or something that didn't happen. But
so under the benefits section, if we could add one more point, and I would say economic development. What I mean is, it's easier to entice a company to come to Wasatch County based on lifestyle, because we don't have an airport, we don't have a freeway, we don't have large tax incentives. What we have is quality of life. And some of our businesses here, Madison's Marshmallows, GDA Engineers, some of these others who have relocated from out of state, they said, we're here because of quality of life. So it's easier to attract businesses to commercial zones by preserving open space.
And I think it'll really appeals to, maybe something like, say, preserved agricultural feel or something like that. I think that appeals to a lot of the old timers,
I'm just hoping
Preserve.
we
Well,
can
what
find some
they-
snowflakes to farm this in 20 years.
What the old timers have said is that,
we
for
buy this
instance,
ground.
the Northfields, that is historical
Yeah.
agricultural
We got a snowflake problem.
ground. So it's not just agriculture, it's historical agriculture. When they first settled the valley, it was the Northfields where they put all their livestock. And then they lived in town. So we heard from some of the families that said that nobody expected to live out in the Northfields because it was for the horses and the cows, and they lived in town and went out there and worked it, so.
Some of these are mostly interrelated, but I kind of like breaking them out.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's smart to separate.
Okay, any other benefits?
To the landowners for estate planning,
You like that? My wife's gonna laugh that I'm the one writing this.
Uh-huh.
First handwritten.
Oh, we're laughing too. So.
Bad.
No, you're doing good.
It's pretty bad.
You're doing good.
Estate planning,
Okay.
For a lefty.
I kind of think of that as like because another one another box I'd like to do, and I don't mind taking this one on, is tools. It's called tools. Right? And what I envision this being is everything we're gonna offer, right? Here's what you're buying with your bond. You're buying this set of tools, right? And I think first off is you're buying a pool of talent, a committee of talented people. Because this committee's not gonna last if we don't have money to
Just call
spend.
ourselves
What's
the
the point, right?
Avengers.
It's empty.
yeah.
You what?
So we could call ourselves the Avengers.
No, because Iron Man was in charge of those, and we haven't decided if we're going to let you do that yet. If you're the chairman, we'll go ahead.
And so we're also asking for the cities to set up their own open land board,
Consider it.
to